Hi, this is Sean.
Hi, this is Isaac.
And this channel's called Wolf Dog Moon. And today we're doing a wrestling discussion. If you've seen our previous wrestling series and wrestling verses and our discussions, then you will know how this will go. So if you like this kind of content, you know the drill. Smash that like button. Subscribe to our channel. Ring the bell for notifications. Comment down below. And share with your friends. Alright, let's get into this. Alright, so we have all of these pretty much WWE wrestling action figures by Mattel. So you have a visual while we're talking. Now, today's topic is going to mostly be about the WWE in reference to their pay-per-views and how they're essentially the different themes that they use or gimmicks, such as Extreme Rules, Money in the Bank, Hell in a Cell, and then I think it's called Clash at the Castle, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs, Fastlane, Elimination Chamber, and SummerSlam, and many others that they do. Now, Isaac and I, we love wrestling, and we especially like when it's called wrestling. And now we also have other promotions now that have sprung up, like AEW, and then you have, under sort of like the AEW umbrella, you have these other, smaller parts of it, like Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor, and then you have other. Of course, you have Japan Pro Wrestling, and then you have Impact Wrestling, and you have what's some others? NWA they have EC3, I think, seems to be. I recently saw one that was it's exclusively on YouTube. It's called JCW. So there's a lot of promotions going on right now, which is pretty cool. But this one's mostly going to be about WWE and their pay-per-views and their marketings and how they go about doing it. And if you've seen some of our other videos, and we definitely encourage you to go watch those maybe first, so you can get a context on what we're going to be talking about here. So this topic's going to be about the pay-per-views, and which ones we think work and which ones we don't. Like, for example, I'm just going to get right into it. Hell in a Cell. Now, if you understand the wrestling industry, and remember, Isaac, you can chime in at any point. The wrestling industry, you got heels and faces, and you have feuds that they're in, and with the different wrestlers, they're in a feud, and sometimes if the feud is really, really good and it's back and forth, and it's got a lot of heat to it, it has a lot of people are really invested into it, then you would do these other types of match types, such as in a steel cage, like if it's a really impressive feud and people are really immersed in it, or if it's you can have a strap match or no disqualification, and different types of matches help you keep the feud going, because you only have so many wrestlers on the roster and there's only so many matchups you can do. And so this video is going to be it's going to be discussion on a lot of the pay-per-views that WWE does, where Extreme Rules is coming up, so all the matches are going to be Extreme Rules, so it gives away not only what the match is going to be, but everyone's going to be doing an Extreme Rules type match, where that you need to hold that for a feud that's really going strong or whatever, or if it's appropriate, where you got two guys and are going against each other, or two girls, and they've it's got so heated and it's escalated so far that now they're getting, chairs and all these other things involved. Or you can chime in, Isaac. Looks like you want to say something.
Well, for Hell in the Cell, isn't that the one where it has the enclosed cage, first of all? Like, you can't go out on the top of the cage?
Yeah, Hell in a Cell, the idea of Hell in a Cell is once you're in, I think there's a referee in the cell, right? Hell in a Cell?
Yeah.
Okay, and then like a cage match is when you either go through a door to get out, and it's basically the first person who touches the ground outside the cage is the victor. So, but you can climb out of the cage, but the Hell in a Cell is you're enclosed, but there's a referee in the ring. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be this brutal match, but the referee's in there, so
all it is this boring match that's in the cage where it just limits the guys to they have to only be in the ring, and
well, it doesn't have to be a boring match. It could be an awesome match. My point is that if you got this hot feud, and for example, the Hell in a Cell could be used if you have these two wrestlers and you have a face, he's on the hero's journey, and he's chasing this other guy. Maybe he even has the other guy, the heel, he has the belt, and every time the face is about to win, the heel just slides out of the ring and gets counted out. He just walks away or says, "Oh, I'm done with this. See you later. You're just wait." He makes up a reason like, "You know what? I have a headache," or whatever he does. I'm being silly, obviously. But he's like, or the other thing is these other goons keep getting involved. So maybe he's in a faction, the heel, and, take Triple H, for example. Okay, Triple H in the middle here. So you're trying to get the belt off him. The face is trying to fight him, and his D-Generation X goons keep coming and interfering in the match. Or they get the referee. They're distracting the referee. They're causing a lot of shenanigans, and then eventually the referee has to ring the bell because they're jumping in the ring and they're getting into the fight. And so, but it's supposed to be a fight against just mano between the face and the heel. So that's the idea, right? And so you would go to a Hell in a Cell where the face is like, every time I go to beat this guy, his goons are coming in and getting involved, and now the referee has no choice to end the match, but I'm winning, or I can beat this guy. He's a chump, or whatever he is. He's awesome, but he's making me look like a chump because I was about to beat him. And you know what I mean? It's like, I'm running out of time or whatever. So then you would go to a Hell in a Cell, because it's like, okay, this means business. And so you put these two guys in the cell, and so none of the other goons, if they try to get in, there's no way. So if they try to climb up to the top of the cell, they can't get through from the top. So they could be fighting on the top. You know what I mean? But a lot of times, for example, with the Hell in a Cell, the cell becomes too much of the match. That's what I found in WWE. It becomes novelty, from the sense that the two guys are not as important as the cell. And so the cell, like, they're gonna go out in order to push that concept, because and this is the problem I have with all of these pay-per-views, except for some of them that I listed, such as the Royal Rumble or Survivor Series and SummerSlam. All the rest of them, they're too. It's too about the brand name of the pay-per-view and not about the wrestlers and why they're doing this, why they're in these matches. So what ends up happening is, for example, with Hell in a Cell, is it devolves into, okay, one of the guys is going to climb out of the match, out of the cell, and he's going to go on the top of the cell, and then it's scary because they're so high up and they're going to be fighting on the top of the cell, right? But they're supposed to be in the cell, and it's supposed to be keeping the other goons from being able to get in. It's like the idea is you're in a prison cell, not that this is a Halloween gimmick. So like they make it a Halloween gimmick slash, okay, you're in a prison cell slash, it's all about the cell, but it's supposed to be about the wrestlers. And just so you know, in general, the problem with WWE, I would say in the last 10 years, is it's all about the brand. It's all about the WWE brand over the wrestlers. So, but the wrestlers are the ones that you're supposed to get invested in and get behind. Do you know what I mean? You're not supposed to get invested in the pay-per-view. You're supposed to get invested in each wrestler. And so I would say that's one of the things they're getting wrong. You know, like another one I would use for an example is the Extreme Rules. Now, okay, you're building up from a promotion standpoint to this pay-per-view that everyone knows is going to happen because it's already on the calendar. It's called Extreme Rules. Last year they did Extreme Rules. When is Extreme Rules? In like after WrestleMania? Is it like, let's say it's in June or something?
I think it's after WrestleMania.
Or I don't know exactly when it is, I forget, but let's say it's in June. So every year in June they're gonna do Extreme Rules. But if you don't have a reason for the wrestlers, you need two wrestlers that you need Extreme Rules because, okay, again, Triple H, his goons keep getting involved. He has a sledgehammer and he keeps using the sledgehammer, but the face is not allowed to because the face is trying to fight within the rules. The concept is the face follows the rules. He listens to the referee. There's a set time limit for the bout. He has to pin the heel inside the ring, and so the heel he's gonna cheat and fight dirty and all this stuff. So it gets to the point where maybe it's not the face asking for Extreme Rules, but the heel's like, okay, let's do Extreme Rules so that he can really pound down on the face, for example. And now, because what's the idea of when maybe he gets disgusted that he still has to keep fighting this face. You know, in this instance, John Cena, like Triple H, he's getting frustrated because he keeps having to fight this face guy, but he already won the bout, even though the referee keeps disqualifying the match. Or it's like, okay, I already fought this guy 5 times, but it's because the heel keeps getting disqualified. So the heel might ask for the Extreme Rules, thinking that it'll give him the edge anyway. All of his goons will have baseball bats. He'll be able to use his weapons and chairs and stuff. So that's the idea behind it. So then you got other pay-per-views that don't make sense. Like, what were you asking me before about Fastlane and whatever?
Oh, okay. So for a while they had the Elimination Chamber, and I think that wasn't at first the Elimination Chamber, and the Attitude Era was the No Way Out pay-per-view.
I don't know what it was, but it was positioned before WrestleMania. So like the concept of the Elimination Chamber, and I think this is what you were asking me, like, isn't it like it's basically how it's supposed to work is that it should be one last chance to make a match in WrestleMania or get a chance at the title. Remember, the whole point of the promotion should be a quest to obtain the title. You know, the title is like the thing that says you're the best. So the quest for all these guys is to obtain the label that they're the best, and that's what the title does. So they're all on a quest, and the heels, they're gonna do it by any means necessary. And the face, they're trying to do it the right way, by playing by the rules, by doing it, in the confines of the ring. You know, they don't want to win the match by being outside the ring. They want to do it in the squared circle. But all these guys should be on the same quest, which is to be the best, to be the champion. It's the whole point of this. And it's a story. You know, this is not like other sports like baseball and football and boxing and UFC and all these other sports where those are trying to present it as a contest irrespective of any kind of story. ESPN tries to tell stories based on these NFL players, but the NFL player just is supposed to be doing what the coach tells them to do. So if the coach says you're out of the game because we need to bring in the kicker or whatever, he has to listen to the coach, for example. Where with wrestling, they're athletes and this is a contest, but there are storylines attached to each one of these individuals. They're characters, like a characters in a story. And this is part theater, part characters, hybrid with these athletes doing these events and stuff that are carefully orchestrated and choreographed. Like in real time. And plus there is an interactive aspect between not the wrestlers and the audience. So this is a hobby and it's an awesome one, and when it's treated as such, that's when the fans are gonna be happy. That's when they're gonna be the most invested. And whenever you're trying to break the suspension of disbelief by subverting their expectations, now I would call a lot of these different pay-per-views that WWE does kind of a subversion. They're breaking the suspension of disbelief too much. They're preventing you from getting invested because it's too it's contrived. Like I said, I used Extreme Rules and Hell in a Cell as an example. We know that so if these two guys before the Extreme Rules, if they're talking about what they're going to be doing and what's the match going to be? It's going to be Extreme Rules. It's silly, but in a bad way. Because, all the wrestlers are Extreme Rules. So every match is going to be falling on tables and falling on, tacks and nails or whatever. And it just becomes chaotic. Now, we encourage you to check out our previous video that we did. It was the problems with the Attitude Era. Okay? And we encourage you to go and check that out. And then you'll understand the context of this video, where the problems of the Attitude Era is reflected in these different pay-per-views that they're currently doing. Extreme Rules, Money in the Bank, Hell in a Cell, Tables, it used to be called TLC, Tables, Ladders, and Chairs, right? And then they got this Fast Lane. It doesn't make any sense. It used to be Elimination Chamber, and that one didn't make any sense. The ones that do, I'll list them right now: Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, and WrestleMania. In the industry, they call those the Big Four, and those are the ones that make sense. You can just book those and put them on the calendar. They can do those every year. All the other ones is hurt your brain. It's like when you're trying to get invested in this show, it just gives you a headache trying to figure out, what are they going for with this, other than it's a brand name. So hold on one second, please. All right, this one's getting a little long in the tooth, but we're gonna, we'll just. You got something you want to add, Isaac?
Okay, so most of the pay-per-views, pay-per-views like Extreme Rules, Hell in a Cell, and Tables, Ladders, and Chairs, Elimination Chamber, and all that, they put a box and limit what the wrestlers can do, and they're doing the do the pay-per-view just because instead of it doesn't really benefit the actual wrestlers necessarily, and
Well, it becomes more about the wrestlers. I'm not more less about the wrestlers. Excuse me. It becomes more about the pay-per-view and what it's called, like Extreme Rules, Hell in a Cell, than it is about the wrestlers. Like the wrestlers are lost, and it's like this brand name supersedes what the wrestlers are going to be doing, and so it becomes boring because like, oh, all right, there's going to be a Hell in a Cell. And where, I mean, you could do, instead of calling it Hell in a Cell, call it Halloween. Like Halloween Havoc is better. So like, I compare that to WCW. It's the same kind of concept, but you're not limited to having to have a Hell in a Cell match. It's too childish, but in a bad way. Like it's too dumbed down to do a Hell in a Cell every year, whether it makes sense or not. In other words, there has to be a logic tied to and reason tied to
most of the time it doesn't really make sense, and it's just the next pay-per-view.
Exactly. Well, it's just the next pay-per-view where, okay, these guys know, and they're breaking character essentially, because they know Hell in a Cell is the next match or next pay-per-view. So they're breaking character as if they've been handed a schedule for the entire year and they know what the pay-per-view is going to be, but they shouldn't know. Other than WrestleMania, they can know about WrestleMania. They can know about SummerSlam and Survivor Series, for example, and even the Royal Rumble, because those, for example, the Royal Rumble is just a battle royal where all the guys get a chance and an opportunity. So you're giving all the guys a chance and an opportunity to, in this one day, on this one moment, to rise to the occasion. That's what it's trying to do. And so this guy could win out of nowhere, really. He could have the day of his life. And if you go back, for example, one of the best, if not the all-time best, arguably, Royal Rumble match was the 1992 Royal Rumble with Ric Flair. He won the Royal Rumble, and he says after in a promo, "This is the greatest day of my entire life." That's the point. You can have the best day of your life on one day, at one time, at 1 hour, one place, and you become the champion, or you have a shot of a lifetime to go to the WrestleMania to prove that you're the best. And once that happens, it's 2 matches. It's 2 matches gets you the title, and right then and there you're solidified as the champion and the best in the promotion. So it makes sense that the guys would know about that. It's the hill they're climbing, the mountain they're climbing. Now, some of these other pay-per-views, for example, Extreme Rules, Hell in a Cell, they used to do the TLC and then Fastlane. They're generic brand names, wrestling tropes, but without the context, without the logic and the reason why these pay-per-views are happening. Again, I'm going to rewind a little bit. If you want to do a Hell in a Cell, you can still have a cell. Call it Halloween Havoc. Call it something else. Call it, Hell Month or something. And then you could do other types of matches. You're not limited, like Isaac said. You're not limited. You're not in a box where it has to be Extreme Rules or it has to be Hell in a Cell. There's all kinds of other matches that they used to do back in, other promotions and stuff, like strap matches. You had, I even saw a silly match on Japan Pro Wrestling. I think it was Okada and another guy, and a couple of their famous wrestlers where they're wrestling blindfolded, or they had they're not supposed to be able to see. Now, obviously, you'd want the heel to be able to see somehow, and that would be funny and also awesome at the same time. And the match is supposed to be exaggerated, and you're supposed to kind of be maybe the crowd's yelling when they're getting close to square, like touching each other where they can actually fight, because they're not supposed to be able to see. So how are they going to be able to do that? Well, the crowd's yelling when the face is getting close to the other guy and vice versa. So there are definitely ways to do this where it's not about for example, it's not kind of usurping the wrestling industry and the point and the reason why these guys are supposed to be duking out. I think WWE, they are too much like, we're a corporation and we are on the stock market, and now and we're other matches, where pay-per-views we're gonna do, and for the entire year and the next 10 years we're gonna do these matches. It's silly. And we're gonna put our suits and ties on and we're gonna do Extreme Rules because that's a wrestling thing, right, guys? You know, it's so dumb and dumbed down that it hurts other promotions. Okay, so like, you're the other promotions, like for example AEW, and again, Isaac, you can chime in anytime you want, but to me, if you're these other promotions, all you got to do is get back to basics and have basic pay-per-views, and you can sell those on the advertisers. Okay, that we got this awesome pay-per-view coming up, and here's why. Whereas WWE is trying to, okay, for the next 10 years or whatever, here's our pay-per-views. This one's called Hell in a Cell. This one's Extreme Rules. You guys know and understand what's going to happen. It takes all the fun out of it. It takes all your suspension of disbelief, takes that, throws it in the garbage, and wants you to treat this like, okay, this is Disney, where they're gonna tell you the next 10 years of Star Wars content they're gonna create. But these guys are wrestlers fighting, supposedly, and it's supposed to be a contest where they're fighting to get to the top of a mountain to prove that they're the best. You can't do that, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. And what that means, that's an old idiom. You can't have your cake and eat it, but also hold it in your hand. Eventually, you're going to eat the whole cake, and you're not going to have any more. So you have to choose which one you want. So, what else, Isaac?
Well, you also have, like, the Money in the Bank, where, like, 9 out of 10 times they're cashing in, the person doesn't win or whatever.
Oh, you mean like, okay, you win the Money in the Bank, and what that's supposed to do is, it's supposed to give you a chance whenever you are ready for the chance, and essentially you get your shot at the title. So that's how it's supposed to work. But honestly, that's a gimmick that they've always done in the wrestling industry. That, you know, but in the past you would have used that for a guy who, you know, it's like an incentive. It's an incentivized to fight, because if only one person can get, usually, okay, and they've broken this rule where they'll do these triple threat matches, remember? But for the most part, it's going to be one guy versus another guy. And so there's only so many shots. But look at all these guys. If this was a roster right here that you're looking at, look at all these guys. So there's not enough time for all of them to get a shot at this title match. And a lot of times when you, if you're the champion and you have the title and you get defeated, you're supposed to get a rematch. And it's like the boxing world. You're entitled to a rematch because you were the champion. And the idea is it could have been a fluke. Something could have went wrong. There could have been shenanigans. There could have been any number. You could have been sick that day. You could have had an injury. There's any number of things that could have been the reason why you got defeated. And so you're usually supposed to get a rematch. So look at all these guys right here in front of us. They all want a shot at the title. And knowing those rules where, okay, let's say right now, if we're looking at this right now, let's say AJ Styles right there is the champion, and then he loses to The Rock next to him, and well, he's entitled to a rematch. Okay, so you have to book that match too. And okay, so let's say in there's one match that they do, and the main event is between these two wrestlers, and AJ Styles loses to The Rock. But the next pay-per-view is Hell in a Cell. Well, now they got to fight in the Hell in a Cell, but really, AJ Styles wouldn't want to fight in the Hell in a Cell. He would want to fight because, like I said, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe there was shenanigans. Maybe he had a bad day, for example. He just wants it to be, he's the face, remember that. AJ Styles, he would be the face in this instance. And The Rock would be the heel. And AJ Styles would just want a regular match because he knows that that's when he's going to excel and be the best. Whereas The Rock, he just wants to avoid, perhaps, having to face AJ Styles because maybe he knows in his heart or whatever that he either used shenanigans or he just had a lucky day or whatever in his mind. But he doesn't want to have to face this guy. Maybe he wants, for example, if you're the heel, you just want to face a bunch of chumps. You want to face a bunch of chumps that you know you can beat. And if once the crowd sense that, they're going to stop booing because you're handpicking these different wrestlers that you know you can beat. So you wouldn't want, neither guy would want to do it in the cell, but if the next booked pay-per-view in advance is Hell in a Cell, now they're fighting in a cell. It doesn't make sense, see? And that breaks the suspension of disbelief. It breaks logic and reason. So what else, Isaac?
With the Night of the Champions or whatever, or now it's Clash of the Castle, I don't even get what the gimmick is for that one.
Okay, I can explain that. Okay, the Night of Champions, it basically, okay, you usually have tag team champions, right? Then you'd have an intercontinental level champion, and then you usually would have a heavyweight world champion, right? So, but with the problem with, for example, WWE, and even like AEW, they got 50 championships. You know what I mean? Like they have, okay, WWE has 2 brands. They have SmackDown and Raw, and each one has a championship. So you have 2 sets of world championship belts. You essentially have 2 sets of tag team belts. You have 2 sets of women's belts. Now you're seeing it already, right? You have 2 intercontinental level belts, whether you call it USA Championship or it's the same thing as Intercontinental Champion. So it's a gimmick where you're gonna do a Night of Champions. So it's all it's all championship matches, okay? Right?
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that's the same thing as these other silly pay-per-views like Extreme Rules. Is where okay, if, for example, it's like on the Night of Champions, if you're a heel and you have the championship belt, you could just get yourself disqualified. You can have your goons attack. Just because it's called Night of Champions, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to. If you're, for example, if you're the face on the hero's journey, the odds might be stacked against you, but this pay-per-view is coming up, and the guys aren't supposed to know about these pay-per-views in a way until it's announced, and that's why you need a commissioner to announce the next what the next match type is going to be for the pay-per-view, and then they're supposed to train or something or work hard and they cut their promos and stuff. But if the Night of Champions is on the calendar, it's like it works in the same way. It's just as problematic as the Extreme Rules or one of those other Hell in a Cell in a lot of ways. But it's supposed to showcase the champions. Now, what if you're look at all these wrestlers on the screen, right? Okay, none of them get to fight on Night of the Champions. So what if you're, because they're not champions. Only those ones I told you about. So, for example, let's say you're really invested in Seth Rollins, but he doesn't have a championship. Or you're really invested in, look over there, Daniel Bryan. He's not fighting on Night of Champions. Okay, so what they would do is, on the Night of Champions, okay, they have 3 championship fights and then some other fights. Like maybe you'd have to throw in a battle royal, but the idea would be that you get a chance to be added to one of the championship matches. You see what I'm saying? But I'm not a big fan of triple threat matches and stuff. like that, only from in a certain way. And maybe that'll be a video for another time. So this one's getting a little bit long. So is there anything else you want to ask me or we can talk about? It's like we really like wrestling, but we like when wrestling is done right. And one of the things with WWE, it's like because they have reached this level where the perception is they're the only ones that are still standing doing wrestling, and so thus they know how to do it, but they're making so many mistakes that are easily corrected in terms of getting back to basics. But it's a money pursuit in a way, but it's a short-sighted one. If you have a long view, you're going to make more money over a long period of time. And they're stuck in a little bit of a spot where they're trying, every month or every day they're trying to make more money than is sensible in terms of like the risk and they're making basic mistakes is how I would put it. They're getting it's like in the stock market, they're fully invested in junk stocks or whatever, instead of having long-term plans and picking stocks like a bond or something that over a period of time is going to give you the best return, if you understand what I mean. Alright, this one's getting a little bit long in the tooth. If you have any questions or opinions, put them down in the comments below. If you like the way that WWE does it with these pay-per-views, put it down in the comments. Let us know which ones are your favorites. I listed ours, like Royal Rumble is one of my favorites. It's just a battle royal. That works. And then Survivor Series is really awesome in my opinion, because you can have these wrestlers team up, and it's about who will be the last survivor. That's easy. And then of course WrestleMania, that's when you get the shot and the biggest moment to be and prove that you are the best. And then SummerSlam is the end of summer big clash, a big battle, or a big war, or whatever it's sold as. But you can do those type of ones, where the other ones, they like Extreme Rules, for example, it takes away the suspense, it takes away the meaning, it takes away from the point of why these guys are on this quest, this journey that they are on as individuals. And so comment down below, and we can start a discussion. And then Isaac, you wanted to bring one last thing up about tables, ladders, and chairs.
Okay, so I don't know what pay-per-view they do now because
it doesn't matter. Just tell us about.
Well, that was the end of the year pay-per-view.
All right.
At one point for tables, ladders, and chairs, and so it's just limited to the objects for the pay-per-view.
Yeah, it's that one had if you get smashed through a table, it was the Attitude Era ECW nonsense. It's silly, it's dumb, but you get to see someone smash through a table, and but they had a whole pay-per-view that was that, so. Whereas if you just incorporate that in occasionally, where a guy drags the table out and brings it in the ring because he's tired of dealing with this face that keeps harassing him, and he smashes him through the table, that makes sense. But giving away the punchline to the joke before you tell the joke, that's what tables, ladders, and chairs is doing. It's like, I'm gonna tell you this joke, and here's how the joke ends. All right, let's do now I'm gonna tell you the joke. He's like, so they're gonna go through a table. The pay-per-view is called Tables, Ladders, and Chairs. It's so dumbed down to the point of, I think, again, we would encourage you to check out the problems with the Attitude Era. It is like this shadow that looms large over the wrestling industry and has infected and stunted the ability to tell real stories real, a real logical narrative that people want to get invested in and follow. You're just creating these, these brand name things that overshadow the wrestlers. In definitely in the case of WWE, and if you're somebody that works at AEW and you see this video, for example, you need to fight hard to make your pay-per-views make sense in terms of the build of the characters and not fall into the trap of trying to make it, we're a corporation, and our corporation, we have these pay-per-views called Extreme Rules and Hell in a Cell, and they're gonna fight in a cell, whether it makes sense or not. You gotta try to combat that type of nerdiness where you're just taking all the fun out of it. And you please try to keep this stuff being fun. And that piece, so don't spoil. You're gonna spoil it for you're spoiling the joke or whatever. You're spoiling the punchline. So, is that any other question? I think we covered a lot of. I think we covered Money in the Bank, Extreme Rules, why Night of the Champions is silly. Stuff like tables, ladders, and chairs, why that's so dumbed down. Is there any ones we left out?
Did we do the Elimination Chamber?
Well, Elimination Chamber, how it worked and how it was booked was that, okay, Royal Rumble decides, it solidifies your shot in WrestleMania at one of the titles. Okay, that's what Royal Rumble is supposed to do now. Now, it doesn't have to do that. Like Hacksaw Jim Duggan won, I think, the very first Royal Rumble, and it was awesome. And Big John Studd won one of them, right? So, it didn't have to be about the championship, but now they've kind of made that an incentive, and also sold that on the fans as something that needs to happen. And I remember, for example, when Bret the Hitman Hart and the Lex Luger, they both went over. They were the last two at the end of the Royal Rumble, and they went over at the same time. And so you didn't know who the actual winner was, which is a cool way to do it, because then it's still suspenseful. Well, once they took away that type of suspense, where who it's solidified who has their shot. Well, Elimination Chamber and even Fastlane was an attempt to pull the carpet out from underneath the guy that is he got his shot solidified in the Royal Rumble. For example, if you're AJ Styles and you win the Royal Rumble, okay, in other words, it's kind of like a contract. The contract states that at WrestleMania you have a shot at the title, and you get to fight this guy one-on-one and have a chance at the title because you beat all these other 30 guys in the Royal Rumble, right? But what they would do is an Elimination Chamber and Fastlane is now they're breaking the contract. So they're breaking on a contract and an agreement and saying, oh, if you, in the case of Fastlane, if you can win that event over so-and-so, then you get added to the card. So you get added to that championship bout between, in this case, would be AJ Styles and whoever, because he won the Royal Rumble. We're saying, in this example, that AJ Styles won the Royal Rumble. He this other wrestler that won Fastlane or Elimination Chamber, he either replaces AJ Styles, because maybe AJ Styles is in the elimination match or Fastlane, and he replaces him. Well, there was a contract. There's supposed to be an agreement. You understand? So the Elimination Chamber is an attempt to say, okay, this pay-per-view needs to be meaningful, so we need to somehow make it so that the person has a chance to get a title shot. Or what they would use to do is Elimination Chambers, the guy that has the championship currently, So, for example, when you win the Royal Rumble, you don't have the championship. Okay? Unless that's like in the case of the 1992 Royal Rumble, Ric Flair won the Royal Rumble and the WWF Championship all in the same night. He won that, okay? But if the incentive is that you get a contract stating that you are in WrestleMania going to fight for the championship, Elimination Chamber tries to go at the other guy. That's what they used to do. So the guy that has the title, are you understanding now? The other guy that has the actual title, right? He is in the Elimination Chamber and he could lose his title. And now AJ Styles is fighting that guy that won the Elimination Chamber. But do you see how silly it is?
Yeah.
There's several reasons why that breaks the suspension of disbelief. It's because for example, the other match will be booked. So we're going to use AJ Styles and The Rock as an example. Okay? So AJ Styles wins the Royal Rumble in our example right now. Okay? And so The Rock is the current champion, okay? The Elimination Chamber, what they would do, remember, AJ Styles now has a contract stating that he, at WrestleMania, gets a chance to fight the champion, all right? So Elimination Chamber essentially tries to use a technicality to state that if The Rock is defeated in the Elimination Chamber, then AJ Styles would fight at WrestleMania against whoever beat Rock. But it's silly because the match will be booked in WrestleMania and sold as AJ Styles versus The Rock. But then you have a pay-per-view where The Rock can lose the title. Do you see how silly that is? And this is how it's hurting the whole industry of wrestling. And as something that people want to get invested in, when you do stuff like that, people are going to either go to somewhere else, like an AEW, and if they start doing silly stuff like that, then they're going to want to go to somewhere else. They're going to go to one of the other promotions, or they're going to watch something else or do something else, read manga where it makes sense from a story perspective and from logic and reason. Does that make sense, Isaac? Remember, there's a whole element to this and that people never want to talk about. It's similar to boxing, where you're a promoter and you're promoting these matches: Rock versus Triple H, Rock versus CM Punk. You have to sell that and get so people buy tickets. But that's part of the wrestling. Okay, that's part of it. That's part of the storyline. Look, we've booked the epic match of the century. You don't want to miss this match between The Rock and AJ Styles. AJ Styles was in the Royal Rumble and he defeated 29 other guys, which, by the way, makes him awesome. He is a dynamo. He's like a honey badger. He never gives up, and now he has the shot of a lifetime against Rock at WrestleMania. Buy the tickets today. But then they throw in an Elimination Chamber like a month before WrestleMania, saying that, okay, those tickets that you just bought, you're gonna have to, now cross out The Rock's name if he supposes he's gonna lose an Elimination Chamber, and put some other guys there. It's silly. And it's just as Hell in a Cell is just as silly. And it hurts the entire business. And not to make this too long, because it's getting long in the tooth here, but like we said, comment down below, let us know what you think, and we can start a discussion. And in the meantime, we hope that this video finds you having an amazing day, and we hope that you have a blessed day. Signing out.